Tenpai Dragon has made its Master Duel debut, and while oppressive they are, would you believe me if I told you that I've been playing their natural counter all along? That's right, Voiceless Voice are Tenpai's natural enemy, and have all the tools you'll need to combat this otherwise overwhelming strategy. If you don't believe me, you can check out the video I posted recently where I go 4-4 against them. I'll link in the description. But that's enough of that. You're here to learn how to play Voiceless, so let's go straight into that. Okay, so for your first combo, you just need low. Don't even look at the other cards in my hand. They don't exist. You just need a low. So what you're going to do is you're going to normal summon low. You'll activate her effect to place a voiceless spell trap into your spell trap zone. The important thing here is to recognize that she says place, not add. So now this is important because it plays around things like Ash Blossom, Troll Lockbird, and even Anti-Spell Fragrance. So once it's on the field, you'll activate Barrier's effect, and you want to almost always search for Saphira in this situation. You'll then activate Saphira's effect, sending herself to the graveyard. Once that has been allowed to activate, you can then send a ritual spell and then add Skull Guardian. Okay, now you're going to activate Saphira's grave effect to banish herself, to ritual summon any light ritual monster from your hand. So we'll choose Skull Guardian, and then we'll tribute the low to summon out the Skull Guardian. Once Skull Guardian hits the field, you want to order your chain so that low is number 1 and Skull Guardian is 2. So the reason for this is that you can play around certain things like Ghost Bell, because it's more important to get your low in the field than it is for Skull Guardian to get the search off. So yeah, we'll use the Skull Guardian's effect as chain 2 just for chain blocking. We'll add anything from our deck to hand. Let's just take the Saravis in case anything happens to our barrier. From here, we'll summon us all to the field. You almost always want to go in defense position because that attacks that is nothing. It's nothing. 50 is nothing. Okay, and that's the combo. So quite simple. Doesn't look like much, but it actually facilitates quite a lot. So firstly, Skull Guardian is an Omni-negate. Plain and simple. That's super good. Secondly, Barrier is pseudo-battle protection, which means that while you have low and ritual monster, your opponent can only attack the ritual monster. Secondly, it means that all of your light monsters have target and protection. If that's not enough for you, this board is resistant to 3 board breakers, well 2 actually. And by that I mean let's take Raigeki for example. If your opponent activates Raigeki, you would let that resolve. Both of these would be destroyed. You would then use the grave effect of Prayer, which says if a ritual leaves the field because of a card effect, you can then summon another from your deck. So we would special summon out another Skull Guardian. The grave effect of Low would then trigger to summon herself. She would then place another one of your spell traps. Most probably would go for Radiance, so your board is now stronger than it was before. Your opponent then activates the second Raigeki, you negate it. If they happen to have a third or another like board breaker, your board would be cleaned. But in terms of card economics, you need to remember that they would only have 3 in hand while you would have 4. So you're more than likely to be able to stop them or do more than this. For the second 1-card combo, you just need Diviner. It does the same thing that Low does, a bit better and a bit worse. You'll see what I mean in a second. So we'll start off by normal summoning Diviner and using her effect to send a fairy from deck or extra deck to graveyard. In this situation, you'll almost always be sending the one from deck, which will be the Trias. You'll then use the grave effect of Trias to tribute the Diviner and summon herself. So what I mean by why it's more fragile than the Low combo is that Diviner can be hit by Ash Blossom, while Low can't. So you would then use Trias's effect, tributing the Diviner's cost. Diviner's grave effect will then trigger, which is if it's tributed, you can special summon a level 2 or lower fairy from your deck. So we'll use that, and we'll summon out Low to our side of the field. Once Low hits the field, she'll activate her effect, activate the barrier, use a Barrier's effect to search for Saphira. Again, pretend we didn't have anything in hand. You then activate Saphira, send in the Prayer, adding the Skull Guardian, and then you would use the grave effect of Saphira to ritual summon again. In this situation, it's safer to tribute the Trias than it is to Low. Even though the Low is free and with summon back, getting rid of the Trias and keeping the Low on the field means that you can play around Bastiles. So yeah, we'll then use Skull Guardian's effect to search. Again, safest option would be Saravis. Let's take a look at the 2 card. So a lot of your 2-card combos are basically the same, or at least they get you the same end board, but I'll show you how to do each just so they can be a bit more thorough. So the first one, you'll need a ritual, plus a way to get Saphira. In this case, we have Barrier. So we'll start off by activating the Barrier. We'll then activate Barrier's on-field effect to search for Saphira. We'll then use Saphira's effect, sending herself to the graveyard. And then we will send Prayer, and then search for a ritual. See, now if we had Serapis, we would have searched for Skull Guardian, and if we have the Skull Guardian, it doesn't really matter which one we pick. It's just that we want to get Skull Guardian in the field, so they're just for tribute. So we'll then use the grave effect of Saphira, banishing herself. We will select Skull Guardian to summon. We will then tribute the Serapis that we added, summoning the Skull Guardian to us out of the field. Skull Guardian's effect is then going to trigger, and it will search for a low from deck to hand. He'll then normal summon low, and then use her effect to place a different spell trap. In this case, I'd probably go for Blessing because I had the other ritual in hand. If you didn't, go for Radiance. We'll then use the Blessing to add back the Saphira. Let's look at another. That same combo I just showed you can be performed if you have Saphira in hand and any high level. So in this case we have Nibiru. That's exactly what we're playing Nibiru. It is both a hand trap and a high level for tributing. So we'll use Saphira's effect, and we'll pretend like we don't have anything else in hand. We'll use her effect to send the Prayer, and then we always want to add the Skull Guardian to hand. Then going to use the grave effect of Saphira, banishing herself to summon out the Skull Guardian, and we'll tribute the high level in this case, which was Nibiru. Skull Guardian will hit the field, and we will use its effect to search. We're always going to go for low in this case, because we need low and Skull Guardian in the field at all times. We'll normal summon low, we'll activate her effect to place the Barrier on our side of the field. We'll then use Barrier's effect to search for the Radiance. Set the Radiance face down and pause turn. That same combo I just showed you can be done if you have a high level and pre-preparation of rites. Something to remember though in this case is that the high level has to be light. You'll see why in a second. So you'll activate pre-prep, and you will search for Prayer and Skull Guardian specifically. So Prayer has this annoying piece of text on it that says you can only tribute light monsters to summon your ritual monster. That is why Nibiru's stats line up perfectly with this, but so does all of your other rituals. It just means you can't use something like Cashier Fenrir, for example. So then we'll use Prayer, and we're going to be summoning out the Skull Guardian, tributing the Nibiru. Skull Guardian will hit the field, and then immediately use its effect to search for low. Normal summon low, activate her effect to place Barrier, and then Barrier's effect to search Radiance. Set, and let's take a look at one more. While it's not always advised, you can also set up the exact same board via a 3-card combo. So for this you will need Prayer, Skull Guardian, and something to discard for the Prayer. This is not going to happen too often, but it is a way to get your exact same board in sort of a tight corner. So you'll start off by activating Prayer, summon out the Skull Guardian by tributing Skull Guardian, summon it to your side of the field. Pretend we don't have anything else in hand, we're going to be using Skull Guardian to search, and we're adding low to hand. Normal summon low. You guys have seen this enough already. We'll go for Barrier effect, and then search for the Radiance. Set Radiance and pop. So you can make a bit of a stronger board if you open up Barrier and Saphira. So we'll use the Barrier in this case to search for the low and not the Saphira. So we'll be adding our gold to our hand, normal summoning her, using her effect, and we want to put Radiance face up. You then can activate Saphira's effect, send in the other ritual, and we will add out our Skull Guardian to hand. We will then Activate Saphira's effect to summon out the Skull Guardian, tributing the low. Skull Guardian hits the field. Low Chain Link 1, Skull Guardian Chain Link 2. In this case we just need some follow-up of sorts, so I'd probably go for a low. Summon back the low to your side of the field. We're then going to activate the Radiance's effect. We'll shuffle the Prayer from grave into deck, because we're pretending as though we don't have the other 3 cards in hand. And we'll summon out Old Man Saravis to our side of the field. So it's just, well, we got 2 more pieces of it, well, 1 more piece. This is surprisingly good. If our opponent activates anything, we can shuffle it or put it back into our hand, summon a ritual from there. In this case, we'll generally be going for Saravis, so we added then a Omni-negate to our board. We can also make a stronger board if we open up low plus Barrier. So we're going to activate Barrier. Use it to search for the Saphira that we're missing. Activate Saphira's effect to send the Prayer to grave, add Skull Guardian. We'll then activate Saphira's effect to summon out the Skull Guardian, tributing the low, so we can do this combo without committing to a normal summon. Skull Guardian hits, Chain Link 1, Chain Link 2. Okay, it doesn't really matter what we add. I would probably go again for low because it ends up being follow-up for next turn in case our board gets wiped. We can just summon it and then re-establish. Low summons the field, and since we haven't used her effect, we can now use it to place our Radiance. Use Radiance to shuffle. We'll shuffle the ritual spell that we have in grave, and then summon Old Man Saravis to our side of the field. So it's a bit more explosive in the sense that we get a Omni-negate when your opponent activates a card, because you return this to hand and then summon the Saravis Dragon. But something to remember is that we are giving up our grave protection. By grave protection, I mean the prayer that we would have had in grave that would have allowed us to re-establish our board if our opponent had a board breaker. So it is something that you need to read into, but most of the time it's worth the trade. So I've shown you how these combos look like in a vacuum. But what about with an actual opening hand? Well, this hand is pretty broken, but I'll show you what it can do. So we'll normal summon Diviner using her effect. Can't believe I called it it, but yeah, it's her. We'll send Trias, we'll then use Trias. Tributing the Diviner, summoning herself to the field, and then you want to use the grave effect of Diviner to summon out a low from deck. Low's effect to place the barrier. Barrier's effect, we're going to search for Blessing in this case. We're then going to activate Saphira, sending herself to graveyard, sending Prayer, add in Allies Pendulum Graph. Activate pre-prep, add in the other ritual spell, and Saravis to hand. So let's make a Skull Guardian using the Saphira's Grave effect, and we'll tribute the Trias. Skull Guardian hits the field, and we'll then use its effect to add Old Man Saravis to hand. Activate Prayer to summon out Pendulum Graph. We'll then tribute the Lone Field in defense position. Then use Low's Grave effect. Place herself back. Activate Blessing, use Blessing. Search for Prayer. Prayer. Summon out Saravis, tributing Saravis. And that is how you get all of your rituals out in one turn.